Okay, Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. I believe Edison, you are here as well.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, we will start very soon, in about 2 minutes. Okay, so right, we'll just allow the students to continue registering for their QR attendance. Okay. How's everything, Edison? Good?
Yeah, so far I'm okay. Is it your side raining a lot?
Not today.
Today, yeah.
Yesterday pun I'm not so sure. Yesterday I think we had some because I was away. So today not yet. Yeah, but it's been gloomy all day until now. Yeah.
Hopefully don't rain anymore lah.
Yeah, true. How's everything in Kuching? You're in Kuching, right?
Yeah, I'm in Kuching, Sarawak. Kuching, Sarawak so far okay. It's still raining, but just for a while lah. Yeah. I think now the Semenanjung son of the east coast, I think Johor is hitting quite bad, and I think in some of the east side of the Sabah also quite terrible. So, yeah.
It's our Malaysian winter.
Yes, it's a year end is always like that. Yeah, the raining monsoon. Yeah.
Yeah, true. All right. Let me have a look if we have any lecturers joining us. Yeah, now is a quite long list to have a look. Well, in case any lecturers would you like to say hi? Saya tak boleh nak cari, ramai sangat nama kat sini. Right. Not so sure. Yeah, Encik Zawawi.
Hi. Hi, Dr. Aizah. Hi, Edison.
Hi.
Oh, I love your plants.
Oh, I will disappear again, okay, but I will be watching. Okay.
Yeah, so Encik Zawawi is one of our lecturer in Civil Engineering Department, as well as one of our previous coordinator. Apa namanya? Integrated Design Project. Yeah. All right, so I think it's 3 o'clock. I think we just start now since we can just follow the schedule. Right, so I will now stop the the QR. Okay, so students, you can continue signing in later. All right. Okay, stop sharing that one. Yeah, so yeah, stop now. Okay. All right, so Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon again to our respected guests, IRTS Edison, all right, as well as lecturers Encik Zawawi, and if there are others, welcome to our ceramah industri, another ceramah industri, as well as pengumuman pertandingan P3L, okay. So I'm Dr. Aizat, your coordinator for IDP, Integrated Design Project. Okay, so this is our ceramah industry that we usually have for our students, but today we actually involve the rest of the the student, means year 1 to 4. Normally IDP is IDP is for year 4. Normally our ceramah industry is for year 4 only, but today we make it open for all year 1 to 4. Right, so I'll just read a little bit about our guest today, IRTS Edison. Okay, so IRTS Edison is a lead geotechnical engineer in Maltimur Resources SDN BHD in Kuching, Sarawak. Okay, so he received his bachelor from Faculty of Civil Engineering in UNIMAS, and then he further his study in his MEng in UTM. Well, my classmate during the time in 2013, and then he had an exposure in Singapore, right, with GIB specialist consultant, and then after that he returned to Sarawak. So IRTS Edison joined Perunding SL, a local civil and structural consultant, involved in various infrastructure project, okay, like Kuching City Bus Rapid Transit, State Water Reticulation Project at rural areas and northern coastal highway. Right, currently he's taking a role as project management consultant, PMC, with Maltimur Resources in Kuching for urban transport system, KUT, as KUTS. Right, so the project will be using autonomous rail transit ART system to modernize Sarawak's public transport system. So very interesting background and history of what he has been doing and what he's doing now. Right, so I believe today his key topic is to share his experience as a design engineer in the construction world. Right, so I hope all the students here 1 to 4, you can take some benefits and info, and even especially if you feel like you want to ask questions, please carry on. Okay, I believe IR Edison wouldn't mind you ask question even during his lecture or anything. All right, so without further ado, I welcome IR Edison to give his talk.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Dr. Aizat. Yeah, I share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, can I? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunities to thank UKM and also the Dr. Aizat for inviting me to do some of the sharing. Yeah. So I was being told that today the participants is mainly the engineering students, right? From the year 1 to year 4. Okay, so some of you might be still very fresh, first year, and some might not be actually undergo the industrial training yet. So that's why you might not have the overview of what actually the design engineer is about. Because during the this industry training, you might actually choose your practicals area in either in developers, in the contractors, or even in the consultants. Okay, so that's why your exposure can be various, compared with your other cosmet. So for just now, I think Doctor have been mentioned a brief about my my background. So most of my time I'm working with the consultant as a design engineers. Okay, and currently I'm more into the project management. For a mega project, the KUTS project, so which is later I will further elaborate. Okay, yeah. So this is the outline that I'm going to bring out to all of you in my presentation. So I'll just briefly inform a bit on my involved project, and also in the project, how does the project governance structure is about. Okay. And for a consultant organizations, usually you have what type of a department, okay? And for the consulting engineering role, okay, is it consulting engineer? Is it all about consulting? Is it all about designing only? Actually, it's not only about designing. It's a lot more things actually we can talk about. Okay. So then I will actually just briefly talk about the Malaysian law and building bylaw. The reason why I want to talk about this Malaysian law and building bylaw is because, as you all may know, that I'm currently in Kuching, Sarawak. Kuching, Sarawak. So actually in Kuching, Sarawak, the regulations, the law is very much different from in Semenanjung, Malaysia. It is different, because we have a different building ordinance, building bylaw. So under this Malaysian law and building bylaw, I briefly just touch about what type of difference. So in later when I do sharing, right, I might be sharing more about the local in Sarawak, So I have some exposure in Singapore, and most of the time my exposure is in Sarawak itself. So if let's say you ask me about some of the Semenanjung's practicing, I might not be able to answer it. Yeah, so I do apologize on that. Yeah, so after that, next I will talk about some design software. Okay, and then I will talk a bit on the specifications, standard, and guideline. After that, then I will show a bit on the sample of design drawings, what type of drawing they usually we facing. I think I will share on some of the water and some of the JKR road project. Then, okay, I will touch a bit on some salaries, give some ideas, some scale of salary and also scale of fee for consultants. Yeah. Okay, this is some of my background. So I think just now Dr. have already do some introductions. So, okay, some of the project I involved, I think I've been involved in the BRT, the bus rapid transit, which is the design stage, I think the conception engineering design stage in Kuching. And I also have involved in some bridge work under this Northern Region Development Agency. For this project, actually, we are involved in designing balance cantilever bridge and some of the connections road and spur road. Then I also involved in this Northern Coastal Highway, NCH, which is at the northern area, Limban and Lawas. So this NCH is very much similar with the Pembangunan Highway. The standard is following the Pembangunan, which we actually design up to the JKR R5 standard, R5 and U5 standard. Yeah. Then I also very much involved in some of the water red in the rural area, either in the state level and also in the federal level. Okay, maybe just a brief of sharing on the current project that I've involved as a PMC, a project management consultants. I think currently in the company that I involved is that mainly I'm focused in all this KUS project, the Kuching Urban Transportation System. So under this project, the Sarawak government actually wanted to enhance the public transportations in Kuching, particularly in Kuching, and to ease the traffic jam in the city area. So Sarawak government, they are very wanted to use this LRT, which is this automated rapid transit, to become the backbone of this two line. Okay, so for your information, the LRT, okay, some of you might be heard it actually in Semenanjung, especially in JB, okay, in Johor JB, and also in Putrajaya. Actually, they also looking in implementing this LRT system into the local city. So I saw some of the YouTube, I think in the news, in JB, actually they have the so-called the demo set. They get it from the China, because this system actually came from the China, and they actually start to do the some sort of testing on the railroad in JB. This LRT so-called is similar like bus, is a vehicle in the bus, but for our Kuching, this KUS project, right, the LRT that we'll be using is going to be hydrogen fuel cell electric, power. So the one that in the Johor and Putrajaya, they're actually purely electric vehicles. So this LRT is rubber tire, so they don't have a physical trail, they can actually detect so-called the virtual tread, a virtual tread where on the road you have a two marking line on the middle of the road, and the vehicle itself can actually detect the virtual tread, and it can be operate automatically. Yeah. So this is a very new, in I think in Malaysia, but in China actually they have been start operating already. Okay. In a project, I will talk about the governance structures for an overall big project. Okay, for a project, of course, you have many parties, for the client side or the project developers. Okay, usually, for example, you can have the government, either in the Sarawak government or other state governments. It can be property developers, like I think in Semenanjung you have those big listed developer like EcoWo, Gamuda Land, IOI Property, and so on. They can be the project developers. And some of the minister, like the one that I just now mentioned, the water red, the water project, right, is actually under the KPLB, the Kementerian Pembangunan Luar Bandar. Okay, so this is the project developers. Then we will go to the project implementer or the superintending officer. Okay, usually the project developer, they are the party that actually funding the money, and they will have another party which is the project implementer or the superintendent officer, or sometimes we call it the SO. I think like in my project, the SO is South Metro. Okay, and there are some other agency like JKR, Recorda, DID, and JBAP. Some of these names like Recorda, JBAP is a local authority in Sarawak here. So some of you might not be very much familiar. Yeah, but I think like JKR, DID is I think is the whole country is actually they have their office. Then for a big project, okay, for the very huge project, like I think for this cruise, I think the Pembangunan Highway or even like the LRT, MRT, they can have a project management consultant, the PMC, to assist the client to manage the project. Okay, like the one that I'm joining, the Maltimur, is one of these PMC for the cruise project. Under the PMC, we have the consultant. We have various consultants, like architect, quantity surveyor, CNS consultant, MAE consultant. We even have those, environmental consultants, or landscape architect, and so on. A lot of consultants will be actually fall under these consultants, various fields, specialized in various fields, work together. And then once we came out with the design, or we can actually assist the clients, to award the project and to the contractors. Contractor is the one who actually is going to get the tender, put up the finance. I mean, to give up the quotations, and then the project will be awarded to the contractor, and contractor will be with. So generally, this is what project governance structure is. Okay, for a consultant, in a consultants, in an office consultants, right? Usually we have the managing directors. Of course, the managing directors mostly will be the PEPC, which is the professional engineer with a practicing cert, which is they are able to endorse and to be able to submit the drawing to the authorities. Okay, under the managing directors, usually they have the human resource department, they have the account, they have the admins. Okay, then under the engineering departments, I think this is just quite a typical small scale of consultants, where they will separate into either you are more toward the structural or you are more toward the civil side. So you have the structural engineers, civil engineers, and some of the big and more well-established consultant, they might further have more departments like in geotechnicals, in highway or road engineers, and some of it even have the water or hydraulic engineers. So it's very much on, it very much depends on that particular consultant, what type of specialized they are into it, So of course, some consultant, they can be very much specialized in geotechnical only, or some they might be just very much specialized in structures, Yeah. So after that, then below the engineer, we always have the draft person, draft person that will actually assist the engineers to draft the drawings. And on the another side, you will actually see for the site supervision team. Okay, Under the site supervision team, usually we will have the resident engineers, how we call it the RE. And under the RE, usually we will have the IOW, which is the inspector of work, or the COW, the cloud work. So the RE and cloud work, okay, and the IOW, so-called the IOW, they are the so-called the supervisions for the consultant for those site work, So for example, to ensure that the work that be done by the contractor is following the design, and of course, usually most of the time there might be some dispute or some site constraint. So the RE and or the cloud work, they will need to highlight the issue on site to the design office, so that they can actually have the so-called the further instructions, or they might need to revise the design to suit the site condition, because what we have been working in the design office might not be purely 100% workable on site, because there's too much uncertainty on the site situation. Maybe for example, maybe the ground situation is very much different from the soil investigation that we get, Yeah, so you might need to, along the way, you may need to do the adjustment. Yeah. So this is the overall organization in a consultant. Okay. Engineer role. Okay, like just now I mentioned, engineer is just not just purely doing design, okay? Because some people, they might thought that, consultant is just doing design, calculation, report, and drawing. It's actually more than that, more than that. So, like example, the consulting engineer, they also need to do project management and coordinations. Management is in terms of to manage, in a certain extent, you need to manage the contractor, and you need to manage and coordinate in between all the consultants. Like I mentioned just now, you have, a lot of consultants like QS, you have the architect, you have M&E consultants, you have even have the landscaping and other specialized consultant and so on, environmental. So you need to actually manage, and you need to actually coordinate. Yeah. Besides manage and coordinations, we as a consulting engineer, we need to get the approval, authority approval. For example, like a siting plan, building plan, and all those water, water rate. Even in the DID, the detention pond, for example, all these we need to get the approval, the authority approval beforehand, before we actually tender. We tender to the contractors, and we eventually construct it physically on site. Yeah. So client, they have their intention. Like I mentioned just now, in the organizations, the client, they have the intention to build out a certain project. So they engage the consultant. So the consultant, they come up with the design, then they need to actually submit it to the authority to get the approval. And the approval, the authority, they can comment. Sometimes they may comment that your location, your size, and they might have a specific requirements, where along the way we need to, as a consulting engineer, we need to amend it. Of course, we need to do justification, amend it, and we get the approval from the authority, and then only we can tender it and award to the contractors. Of course, in the design stage, we always need to do, some of us, we need to do cost estimation or the build quantities. Some of you might say that, yeah, this cost estimation and build quantity is a quantity surveyor's job. But for a certain infra job, or even for some small scale job, is engineer itself need to do the cost estimation or some build quantity, because even some of the QS, they might not be familiar with your design, if your design is very much too specialized, even the quantity surveyor also never do this type of design before. Yeah, so that's why as a consulting engineer, we also need to very much know the cost estimation and to be able to work out with build quantity also. Yeah. Then as a consulting engineer, we also need to be able to assist the client to do the project tenders and to do the clarification when we are doing the tenders, right? When we awarded, when we are doing the tendering, the interested tenderers, they might have issue questions. Is it maybe some part that they are not too clear, so we need to do clarifications during the tender process. And when the tender is closing, the consulting engineer actually need to do the evaluations. Okay, what type of evaluation that we are doing? We will actually evaluate the tenderer. For example, like the contractors, we will need to evaluate the contractors in terms of their financial capability, at least they must, in terms of their health, in terms of their financial capability, we actually evaluate their bank statement. And also, we also evaluate in terms of their capacity, in terms of their manpower, okay, their technical personnel, or even in their machinery. The machinery. Yeah, like for example, if you are doing the road project, right? So you have how many excavators, bulldozer, and so on. So all this will be evaluated, and we will come up with a report to the client, and then we will actually advise the clients on who to be awarded. Yeah. So during this tendering, our involvement is very much different in each level. Okay. After the project had been tendering, the consulting engineer will need to attend the site meetings and also the progress meeting. So I think standard, the site, they usually have a monthly progress meeting. Some project they might have fortnightly. It's very much different. If the project had been like project circuit, so the client may require that, I want to have a project meeting every week, to follow up closely. So the consultant need to actually to attend the site meeting and the progress meeting. And in this progress meeting is some sort of dialogue in between the consultant, the client, and also the contractor. So the contractor will actually raise out a lot of their issues, So in this meeting, we need to try to solve it out. Okay. We also need to actually involve in the quality assurance and quality control. Like I think for civil, you have like those test tube, piling record, So all this we need to ensure, like that. The static load test and so on. So we need to ensure the quality and the quality control for all the site work that have been done. And along the way, the contractor, they will submit the progress claim in the interval, maybe in a monthly. So I think the consulting engineer also need to verify the progress claim, not only the QS, but the consulting engineer need to verify the progress so that the client can release the progress claim to the contractors. Yeah. So with all this, hopefully that some of you might have a better view on actually what is actually consulting engineer is all about. Okay. I will talk about this section. I'll talk about a bit on the Malaysian law and building by law. Okay. This is the hierarchy of law in Malaysia. Yeah. I'm not sure whether in UCAM is it you all have learned about law, building law or some act like. Is it in UCAM? Have you all been teach about this? Yeah. So about the hierarchy, so I think in Malaysia the highest the highest is our federal constitutions. Okay, Perlembagaan Persekutuan 1957. That is the most highest law in our Malaysia's. Yeah, okay, in our Malaysian law, and under it we have this act, so they have most of the act that go through by the parliaments, it will be given the numbers, like Act 133 and so on, which is the street drainage, the act, and then we also have some of the court, and a level that below we will have these rules, regulations, bylaw, or standard form of contract. And the lowest is among the standard or the law is the so-called the guideline, the circular, and the standard. So like you can see here, okay, so they have these descending orders, right? So as you can see that for the below the Institute of our constitutions, right? So we have this, for example, like Act 133, okay? So this is the Street Drainage and Building Act. Okay, so all the act is given numbers. Then after that, then you may have this, for example, this uniform building by law, or sometimes we call it the UBBL. Okay, then only then you will go into the Malaysia standard. For example, like MS 11 at 4, 1523. So some of you might be asking if there is a discrepancy, like there are some things that is not tally or contradict with one another. We always follow the highest, the highest law for, if let's say the Malaysia standard is contradict with the UBBL, we should be following whichever the higher, which is the UBL. So this actually that's why it's very much important that we know the hierarchy of the law. And in this for example, like Act 133, right, the Street Drainage and Building Act, so if some of you might it's good that you can actually go through all this, because like all these Street Drainage and Building Act actually is very much spell out the requirement, so-called the basic requirements, like what type of loading, what is the space, the buffer zone, and so on. And in the section 133 under this act, right, 133, right, so it actually gives the local authority the power to build up by law. So that's why this uniform building by law is actually built up based on the section 133 of this Act 133. Okay, the so-called the bylaw, they have very much difference in different stage. Okay, in different stage. So that's why it's very much important that it depends on where you're working and your project. Okay, your project is working at which area, even in like in KL, in Selangor, right, in Selangor, so you will have this difference bylaw, which is the KL and also the Selangor is very much different, Yeah, so this is very crucial that when you start a project, when you're designing a project, you need to check, your location is under which authority, local authority, or either is under which council, under which council. So from there only then you can follow or you can use the right bylaw. And for your informations, in Sarawak here, we doesn't use UBBL, we doesn't use UBBL because in Sarawak we are actually following our own building ordinance. We have our own bylaw, so that's why it's very much different. Like okay, maybe for some example, like in Semenanjung, in Semenanjung, Malaysia, some of you might be always heard about CCC, right? Which is the certificate of this completions and compliance. CCC is that where a project have been finished and the client, the consultant, they need to sign this CCC form so that the building can be occupied. It's legally being occupied by the so-called maybe the buyer or the owner. Yeah. So, but in Sarawak, we doesn't practice CCC. We are actually practicing the OP, occupation permit. So sometimes it's very much confused when I have Semenanjung friends. They're asking me about, hey, how is it? Have you get the CCC and so on? What is the requirement and so on? So yeah, at first I was quite confusing. I mean, here we doesn't have this CCC, but what we have here is OP, OP, which is actually given by the local authority, like council. But in Semenanjung, the CCC is signed and is issued by the consultant engineer. Either it's architect or the consulting engineers. Yeah. So that's why the consultant play a very important role, because you can approve that the building, either it can be used or not. Is it safe enough? Is it already comply all the requirements? Yeah. For this CCC in before 2017, right? Actually, some of them they call it the CFO, Certificate of Fitness Occupation. Yeah, CFO. Yeah. So that's why for some of your, some oldest house, you might see this CFO, But after the year 2007, they have changed this to CCC. Yeah. So that's why is as you can see, is very much difference. Even in Sabah, in Sabah they also have their own law and also ordinance. It is different from Sarawak also. And yeah, this is some of the compulsory document to submit in the building plan. So for example, like if you want to submit the CCCs, right? So you will have this 21 form, where all these forms need to be signed by respective qualified persons. We call it the qualified persons. Like for example, like earthwork, you need to submit by the PPC or civils. The setting out is by the land surveyors. Foundation by the civil, and maybe some like the street lighting is submitted by the electrical PPC, and also the external water supply. Like the lift and escalator is submitted by the mechanical PPC, and so on. Okay. This is the authority. Yeah, just like I mentioned, right? We need to actually get approval from authorities. Yeah, so I think in this is more to the Sarawak context, So here we have the SPA, our building plan. We need to submit it to our Sarawak planning authorities, and we have our own land and survey, okay, Sarawak, and we have the DID. We have councils. In Kuching area itself, we have briefly 4 council, okay, MBKS, DBKU, MPP, and MPKS, and of course we need to get some of the road is a federal or the state road, so we need to deal with the JKR, especially if your project is just at the side of the federal road and JKR and state road, right? So you need to actually write into JKR to get a certain approvals, Yeah, of course, in water authority in Sarawak itself, we have 4 water authorities. We have Kuching Water Board. In Sibu area we have Sibu Water Board, and in Laku it's more on the northern area in Miri and Limbang. And in those rural area, the water authority is actually under the Jabatan Bekalan Air Luar Bandar Sarawak. Here we have our own Sarawak Multimedia Authorities, Telecom, Sakofa. Sakofa is an authority that is so-called the main supplier for the telecommunication towers, the Sakofa. And we have our Sarawak Energy Berhad or SESCO. So this one is equal to the the TMB in Semenanjung, okay, the Tenaga Nasional, the TMB. And we sometimes we also deal with CAM, the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia. This one is when your project is very much near to the airport, very much near to the airport. So in the airport area, because we have so-called the flight path, right? So the height of the building, there is a limitation. The nearest that you closer to the airport, the lower height limit that you can go. So that's why some of you might be noticed in some of the airport area, the building cannot be too high. Maybe the most is like some 2-story, 3-story, and along the way when you go further, then you can actually go higher. So for those projects that actually near to the airport, like in Kuching here, the airport is at almost at the middle of the city, So that's why we always need to write into the CAM to request, to request what is the maximum height that we can go. And the maximum height also including the tower crane, for example, during your construction, some of it, because the tower crane need to be higher than the building itself, right? So the tower crane also need to have the approval, the height need to have approval from the CAM. Of course, in here we also have the Sarawak River Board, SRB. So the SRB actually, for those big river, we need to write into the SRB to get the approved navigation window, because some of the river, especially the main river, we have those big cargo that might be going in. So some of the navigation window might be very much higher than the normal water level, like maybe another 20 meters. It very much depends on the approval from the Sarawak River Board. And of course, if we are actually doing with the jetty and port, we need to actually submit the approval from the Marine Department Malaysia. So this is just a few authority that we deal, in Sarawak. I think in Malaysia, in Semenanjung is very much different. Like I mentioned just now, you're dealing with TMB, Telecom, and in Selangor, maybe when you're dealing with water, maybe you'll be dealing with Pengurusan Air Selangor, and yeah, also you might be dealing with SPAN, the Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Air Negara, and so on. Yeah. Okay, now I will just share a bit on the design software. So yeah, this is just some software that we'll be using, in the consultant line. So like structurers, we may have like Orions, Prota, Teka, and Step Pro, SAP, SAP, so on. And for geotechnical, usually we might have these Plexis, 3Ds, GeoStudio, like GeoSlope, Midas, GTS, NX, and so on. And for water rat, we can have this WaterCat, Ipanet, Aquato, and so on. And bin actually is a new trend. I think bin now a lot of projects they start to implement bin. So bin, like for example, we have this Autodesk Revit. And for highway project, you can actually use the Autodesk Civil 3D or the OpenRoad or MS Road. And for bridge, you can actually use the Midas Civil or Step Pro and CSI Bridge. So this is just some software that you might be learning or be using if you are involved in design. And I might just briefly talk about some of the specifications that we'll be using during the designs. Of course, the spec will be very much different based on the location of the project. Okay, so like we have the spec guideline, the Uniform Technical Guideline, Water Regulation Pumping, the MWA Design Guideline for Water Supply System, and we also have the in Sarawak here we have the JKR Sarawak Guideline, the Specifikasi Arm, bagi pembinaan Sarawak. So for this JKR Sarawak guideline is only apply in Sarawak. That's why you will notice that the residual pressure that we are designing in Sarawak is actually very much higher in Semenanjung, if you really notice lah. I think in Semenanjung your resident water pressure design can be only up to 7.5 meters, right? But in Kuching here, I mean in Sarawak here, we might need to design up to 10 meters. You know, so that's why there are some various depend on the locations and the authority requirements. Of course, other relevant guideline from the local authority, like the water authority that I mentioned, the fourth water authority in Sarawak. Okay, and then for some drainage system, okay, for the drainage system, we are actually referring to the MASMA. I think now they are actually going into the MASMA 2 already, and in Sarawak there is a bit. We have our own custom requirements, you know. So we have our JPS Sarawak, or so-called the DID Sarawak. We have our own custom requirements. So this one is to the requirements for the OSD, the on-site detention or the detention pond. I think now, like for example in Selangor, I think now the Selangor area have been facing a major flood, right? So I think now a lot of people might be relook into the MASMA requirements. I mean, I don't know, but they might be actually looking at the requirement, whether is this sufficient or not, you know. I mean, because they need to know actually where go wrong, you know. Yeah, because people always say that when it's happened once, it can be happened another time. So we, as an engineer, we always need to prepare for the worst to come, you know. So all these detention pond is actually based on the MASMA. And of course, for highway project, we also refer to the guideline of road drainage design published by the RAM, this Road Engineering Association of Malaysia. Of course, there's still a lot of specifications, standard, and guidelines. This is just briefly to highlight, you know, some of the spec that you can go and study, you know, along the way. Even like just now, I think Dr. Abby mentioned, you all have this IDP, right? I think some project, integrated project. Yeah. So some of you, when you do the design, you always need to go back to the spec, you know, or the standard or the guideline, you know. Yeah, I think for road design, we very much look following the RIM or the ATJ. ATJ is the Arahan Teknik Jalan by JKR. So I have actually put in there is a lot of Arahan Teknik Jalan, the spec. You know, I think 1 until 20 something. So, for example, like you have the Arahan Teknik Jalan 2A, which is established at the year 1985. Like this is the standard traffic sign. Along the way, they will actually have these revisions. You know, so always follow the latest revisions or the latest issuance. You know, some of the old spec or the guideline it will be suspended lah. Yeah. So we have like traffic sign applications, manual of traffic control device, you know, manual on pavement design, guideline to design of grade intersections. Yeah. So, and also we can also refer to JKR standard specification for roadwork, the SSRW. Yeah. So all these, some of these you can actually look it up online lah. Yeah. So I do encourage that the students, whenever you want to do a road work, yeah, do refer to this spec, standard, and guideline. Okay, for geotechnical design, yeah, you can actually refer to JKR standard or the Malaysia standard MS 2038. For like example, the core practice for site investigations, you know, MS 1056 for soil for civil engineering purpose, the test method. Yeah. Of course, there are still other BS, British standard, and some JKR guideline. Okay, all these you can try to look for it, and you can study. Okay, sample of design drawing. Yeah, maybe I will show you some of the design drawing. Okay. Okay, so this is some of the typical drawings, you know. So like this is the typical drawing for the JBAP, the Jabatan Berkaitan Luar Badan. So all these typical drawings or standard drawing, I can share with Doctor later. So some of maybe later he can actually share with you all. Yeah. So we have the water markers, you know, and we also have those valve chambers and so on. So this is the pillar hydrants, switch valve pillar hydrants, and this is the chamber detail. Then I will show you a typical road project for JKR standard. So for JKR standard, usually we have the standard format of the title block. Okay. I think the title block with the clients, you know, who is the clients, the scale, and who is the designer, who is the contractors, and the deck, and also the revisions, you know, because sometimes the drawing we have a lot of revisions, so the title block need to actually mention which revisions. Okay. Then this is the front cover. Usually a project drawings, right? We have the drawings index. We have the locality plan. Then we will have the master layout. Okay. Then we will have the cross sections. Okay. So like for example, okay, the cross sections. So you have the typical road cross sections. You have the pavement design, the thickness of the wearing course, the binder course, you know, the road base and sub base and so on. Okay, and the detail of the concrete slab. Okay. This is typical road, the construction joint, and this is the alignment control plan. Okay, this is the alignment control plan. This is the plan and profile. So you always have a plan and you have the profile. For a standard JKR is each of the plan and profile is always mostly is a 700 meter channage. So this means you always started from 0 to 700, then 700 to 100, 1000 and 400. So you have the cross section. And you have the junction details. This is the junction setting out. Okay, you have the pavement super elevation. Then you have the road marking and traffic, you know, traffic sign. Then you have the drainage plan. So I'm showing you this just a sample so that you have better ideas, you know. As a consultant, I think our output is the report, the calculation report, and also the drawing. And the drawing is very crucial is because during the tenders, right? Some of the project, the drawing is the main govern. So whatever that you put in the drawing, it will be the contractor need to consider, you know, because most of the time there will be a lot of VO, you know, variation order is where there will be always an argument where the consultant doesn't put this, but instead it's a need, you know. So that's why the drawing need to be very detailed, And of course, the engineer, we cannot 100% capture whatever they needed. So that's why after the awarding, whatever the variations, as a consultant, we will need to justify, So once we're able to justify it, it's agreed by the clients, then we will actually raise out so-called a VO, a variation order, and we will issue a new instructions to the contractors, so that it will be so-called extra job for them, It's a top up on whatever the amount that has been agreed by the contractors. So this is a traffic management plan during the constructions. So you need to have all these, the warning signage. So, okay, same, different stage. So you have the bridge. Okay, this is the type of bridge. This is the bridge general arrangement. So you have all the pier locations. This is the cross section. This is the layout plan, and this is the sections. And you also have the bore pile detail. Okay, you have the bore pile detail. This is the bearing and dowel bar for the bridge. This is the utility relocations. Okay, so we need to capture the all the utility like telecoms, the power cables, the water pipe, and so on. So we need to actually put into this utility relocation plan. So, okay, this is some of the samples of designs drawings. Okay, I think the last two topic that I will talk about is the salary. Okay, I think the salary and also the scale fee. Okay, here I was referring to the this MOF, the Ministry of Finance. This is a manual PK 3.2 cost perkhidmatan perunding. So for federal project, for federal project, we'll be referring to this so-called this scale. So like as you see that I think in the right hand side, okay, this is the basic, the gaji pokok, which is the basic for degree holders, Of course, this is just a temporary. Why using a temporary? Because for a government project, the contract can be 2 years, it can be 3 years, because it's not a permanent. So that's why in here, why you will see that why it actually using as a kaki tangan sementara. Yeah, because for the government, for the government, they actually only engage you temporary. So I think this is very good reference, because this is the scale that has been agreed by the Malaysian ministry. For example, like if you are engineers with the at least a 5-year experience, so your basic pay should be at least 4,600. For 10 years experience, your basic salary should be 6,670. And of course, along the way, if you have 20 years of experience, your basic should be at least 10,000. Okay. Of course, when I mentioned this is the basic is that for certain project, they have others allowance, like like petrols, like phone bill, and some living environment, living allowance, if your project size is very much away from the city area, maybe in the rural area, yeah. So you will have, you can have extra so-called allowance on top of this basic salary. And of course, for this, for the scale of fee, yeah, I think for the scale of fee, okay, as you all may know, our scale of fee actually is governed by the BM, our Board of Engineer Malaysia, there is two type of scale of fee, I think at the left and at the right. The left one is the BM scale of fee 1998, and the right hand side is the scale of fee for housing developments. Okay, for both this scale of fee is actually by BM, and the right hand side the scale of fee for housing developments, right? So this is the scale of fee for housing development, okay, for like shop houses, flat, condominium, apartment, which is not more than 4-story height, okay, not more than 4-story height and situated in a single location. So the consultant will need to follow this scale of fee, and other than that, other than that, for M&E, even for the civil, we'll be following this BN scale of fee. So the cost will be in terms of percentage. They have the P-min and P-man out of the total cost of component for the work. For example, like maybe if you in a highway project, maybe is 100 million, 100 million. So if let's say the scale of fee here, if it's just for example, like it's a 3%, okay, it's a 3%. So this means your consultant fee should be 3% out of the total construction cost of 100 million, which is about 3 million. So this is just illustrations purpose, yeah. So I do encourage that whoever that because in the local market here, a lot of the consultant actually try to give a lower price, not following the scale fee, which is I'm very much not encouraged, because you can't say them wrong, but it's very much not encouraged. And in currently, just for your info, that for BM, currently they are in the midst of revising this BM scale fee. Okay, they are in the midst. I think they will actually bring out this. They will revise this scale. I think they will brought, and then we will once it's approved by the minister. Okay, I think the BM will actually fall under this Minister of Work. Minister of Work. Once it's approved, I heard the changes is that they won't have any P-max or P-min anymore. They will only have a so-called P-min. This means that the scale of fee, the new revised one, they will actually impose it a minimal fee, where a project, this is the minimum fee that you need. Of course, it's based on the complexity of the project. If the complexity of the project is very much higher, where you actually need more manpower, you can increase the fee, but there is a minimum fee. And of course, some of you might be asking, if let's say you're just purely doing advisory work, you don't know which scale of fee to be following. Another way or another method that usually the consultant they implement is that based on the man-hour input. Man-hour input is that, for example, like from the salary, the project salary. So they divided it into hours, or days. For example, like standard working days can be 26 days. So they divided, and then they actually charge the client based on the man hours or the hour input that is needed. So this is also can be one way also, for a consultant to propose, their fee. So I think in the last few months, I think there is very much, article saying that, Jurutera miskin, right? So I will say that, yeah, the government actually looking at it. I think the BM is actually looking at it, especially for the young graduate that when they're going to come out, So I think nowadays the living cost is very much high, but we can see that actually the BM they are actually working out, to increase, the salary, and also in terms of the consultant fee also, So is I would say that it's actually directly related, because if you have a higher consultant fee, of course the company can actually give a better pay to the engineers, right? Yeah, so that's why I say it's a good time that good sharing, that that all of you who are going to step into the in the working field, at least I mean, what is the rate that you can actually get it, when you start to enter. Of course, it very much depends on the area. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Briefly, I think we just go through I think this one is my last slide. I think the problem that usually we encounter in the project is like, for example, now we have this COVID-19 and the MCO. Last time, I think a lot of construction site need to be stopped. We have a shortage of foreign workers, so and also shortage of materials, yeah. So a lot of delay have been occur, I think it's also occur the cost increase to the contractors, So try to imagine a contractor that have get the project before the COVID, and he actually need to, extra cost on maybe like the labor, for example, like quarantines, swabbing costs, and even like now the shipping, the shipping cost is also increasing, yeah. And of course, we also need to encounter the weather increment and flood. Like for example, like Selangor flood, so we need to actually justify, and with some justification, consultant can actually advise the client to issue EOT, extension of time to the contractor, so that the contractor won't be suffer from the so-called the LAD, or the penalty based on the contract that have been signed. And of course, sometimes the client, they have a budget constraints, so the engineers or the designer, they need to actually come up with very optimized design to serve the objective of the project. Of course, not to compromise the safety of the public. Okay. And of course, like I mentioned, the site constraints, like maybe the soil can be different from the soil investigation. And of course, the time constraint is that we have the urgencies, the client may want the project to be completed in a very short time, where it will actually occur in a more labor, more time, more working hours, and so on. And of course, sometimes the contractor may misconduct, so we need to actually monitor and supervise the contractor. And of course, like I mentioned, the variation order, the VO, where things have, the client sometimes may require special, or they may demand, some special things where they doesn't inform before the tender, and they insist or they demand in some additional work. So as a consultant, we will actually issue a variation order to the contractor. Okay, I think 1 hour is there. Okay, so this is my slide. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, IR Edison, for a very good talk. All right, so many infos, examples, and all the work related to as a design engineer. So, any questions from the students? Feel free to either type in or put on your video, say hi perhaps, and then any questions? There's so many actually here, 230 students, all for year 1 to year 4. Anyone? No? Any questions? That's very typical Edison. That's what we get all the time, especially during class. Yeah. Right. Can I just simply ask? And I know, like, as a design engineer, as you mentioned, everything needs to be in the drawing. So based on your what you've been through, maybe if you have, what happened when you don't have in the drawing but you need it, and then is it a difficult thing to add it in, or what is the process?
Okay. Of course, some in the drawing, sometimes if we don't have the so-called the detailed design, sometimes we will list it out, like refer to the supplier's details, example, or the proprietary details, because, like, for example, sometimes the client, they might have the so-called selected supplier, for example, like roof truss. So the roof truss, in our drawing, right, we'll be referring to the the proprietary, just a statement, referring to the proprietary detail, or some typical, or referring to what standard drawing, and so on. And of course, in some of the if in some cases where we doesn't spell out in detail, but we spell out in the tender document, in wording, in a specification, where we request the contractor to propose, because sometimes the contractor, they during the tender, they can actually counter propose. They can propose their method, their way, and if the client do accept, because the different way. That's why the contractor sometimes among the contractor, why this contractor they can give a lower price, because they have a very good method of construction way, where the other contractor might not have think about, so that's why they can be able to give a very competitive, a lower price, so they can propose their way in the tender document, and once it's awarded, usually the consultant, they will request the contractor to submit a short drawing for the approval. Yeah, a short drawing for approval. So this is usually what we're facing if, let's say, we don't have typical tender drawing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So additional short drawing, and then you carry on with the process, I believe.
Yes, yes.
Can I ask, is there any project of yours affected by the flood recently?
Not recently, but I have a site that actually flooded because it is a water tank project, and the project is the site is flooded due to the malfunction of the floodgate of the DID the DID pump is flooded. So it is malfunction because I think something blocked. So it's been flooded, and the contractor, of course, they cannot work. So contractor, they do temperature. They have very strong evidence. They even show they even write into DID, to say that they write into DID to request to seek their clarification, and DID do came out with some statement saying that the flat guard have been malfunction. They even attach with the newspaper, Of course, the very much proof is that they do take the photo during the flooding, with our construction site, So they attach all these as proof, and then they also attach this rainfall data from DID, the rainfall data. So that's why I say, as an engineer, we are not actually always side to the client. We need to be the communicator, in between the client and contractor. We need to be fair. If the contractor deserve it, we feel that it's additional work. It had been deeply affected by the situation where they cannot control it. It's out of their out of their control, yeah, we should be advised. You know, we advise the client, we evaluate, we justify, because the client, we always ask our advice, because we are the consultant, we are the person that consult them. You know, because client, they might not have the technical report, technical background or the technical knowledge. Yeah, so like this flooding, like what happened in the Selangor, I will say that as a contractors, you know, they need to gather all this proof, you know, what had been, you know, and the water had been going until what level, you know, what is maybe their machinery or their this material, you know, on-site material which already been delivered on site, but then it's been destroyed, you know, by the flood, you know. So all this we need to try how to find the balance, you know, in advising the client and also the contractor.
Yeah, right. It's very fair indeed, isn't it? At
I
some
mean,
point,
as engineer, we need to be fair, like, you know. I mean, we
Yeah.
are not, of course, we are protecting the client interests. And not to forget, actually, the mainly is that we are actually protecting the public safety interest. You know,
Yes.
we are protecting the public. If the clients do the demand, they are demanding things that can cause harm to the public safety, we should be actually rest out. You know, we should be rest out, and yeah, you know, so we need to protect the public also.
Yeah. Thank you. That is a very good input for the students, actually, because, you know, in IDP, they have to consider, well, when we give them a site to do their development project, so they have to consider, it's not charity, but the side of for the impact to the community in terms of safety, public health, the awareness, you know, the culture and the community, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you very much. I think we are nearly to the end. So ada soalan kah? Anybody? Any question?
Mr. Edison?
Yes.
I just want to ask, as a structural engineer, how many times do you need to do a manual calculation instead of using a software while you are doing the structure design?
Okay, I think I mean in this modern area, of course, designer is nowadays very much dependent on software, you know, because the software, they can actually model the whole structures, you know, in 3Ds, and sometimes the structure, the software can actually optimize, you know, the design, you know, like FEM and so on. So like you mentioned, the menu, yeah, I mean for small project, yeah, you can still use menu. There's nothing wrong. Usually we will encourage for structural engineers that, I mean, sometimes the software, you know, people always say rubbish in, rubbish out, you know, so sometimes you might be overlooked on some of the input, because sometimes you might be, you know, you might copy from the previous project, maybe this shop house A, then now you have another shop house B, you copy from A to B. Maybe some of the loading or some of the layout, you might be mistakenly, you know, or, you know, sometimes software, you know, I mean, you might be miss out a few of those input or the parameters, you know. So for manual is that you always you can always double check, you know, you can selective, you know, you're selective a few columns or few beams, you know, you can just simply do a manual calculation. Of course, the manual calculations, it can be in an Excel form, because now Excels, you can do Excels with a formula inside. You know, so you just key in, you know, the input, you know, then you can briefly get the steel bar, the width of the bin and so on. So it's good that you can have a manual calculation to double check. You know, it's like some sort of QA/QC to check the output of the software. You know, don't too highly dependent. You know, just believe blindly on the output. You know, especially the young engineer, when some of them, they might be still not so familiar with the softwares, you know. Yeah, some people, they might compare, you know, manual and the software, and they might type the more conservative one, So some designer they also. So it's how you actually justify. I mean, how you balance out lah. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay. Good, Azam. Any questions? Any more questions?
Hello, Edison. I have a question. So if let's say we work at a company for 5 years, if one day when we decided to change a new working environment, so does our salary go back to the starting basics? And your advice, so if let's say we work in a company, so do we need to continue work with the company to strive for promotions or for increment of our salary, or change another new environment?
Yeah. Okay. About the salaries, right? Yeah. Actually, for engineers, you know, I mean, along the way, the more experience you go, the valuable you are. You know, the valuable you are. Yeah, this is one thing for sure. So, the year of experience, it doesn't depend on, you know, the attachment to the companies. You know, I think as engineers, some of the engineers, they attach the project. So the project is 3 years. Then after the project ended, he might actually go to another new project which is under the new company. So the experience that he gained in the past project, the 3 years, do count. You know, they do count. So like you say, for 5 years, when you enter to the new company, which is the 6 years, your salary will still stick with the 6 years experience. Yeah, so you no need to be worried. So, and then of course for the company is actually depends on the company. I mean, some people, they can stay with a company for 10 years until the retirement. So some of them, they might change the company after they gain a certain experience and they have a better opportunities or better offer from the other companies. You know, yeah. So there is no right and wrong. You know. There's no. It's just something that you need to ask yourself is that, you know, is it the exposure? You know, because civil is really too wide. You know, civil is just too wide. Yeah. So it very much depends. Yeah. Hopefully, I answer your answer. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, they're always concerned about the first pay and. You know, but it is important. It is important.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Right. Okay. So I believe we have to stop here. Right. It has been valuable time with you. Thank you very much, RTS Edison, and thank you very much, students, for joining. And right. So we have a following majlis coming up later. Right. But just to end with. Probably if we have to get some photo with IR Edison, so students feel free to put on your camera. Lecturers, siapa yang ada jemput sekali untuk ni buka kamera student. Okay, sekejap je. Alang-alang ada civilians awak tolong ambil gambar sekali lah. Saya pun print screen Okay, siapa lagi yang nak on camera? Anybody else? Right? Ada lagi? Okay, ready? Dr. Nizam, Dr. Nazri, right? So IR Edison, Dr. Nazri is our course coordinator. Dr. Nizam is one of our Professor Madya in Jabatan.
Hi.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, senyum. Right. Okay. Civilian, awak nak ambil lagi ke? Sekejap. Save dulu. Sat. Okay, alright. So kalau tak ada, saya ucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada IRTS Edison for a very good talk. Okay, you are welcome to join us. You are welcome to stay and join us for the majlis. Actually, we have the majlis pengumuman pertandingan perancangan pembangunan lestari for the IDP. Alright, so thank you again, RTS Edison, and now I jemput di pengurusi majlis untuk majlis seterusnya. Zulaika ya.
Terima kasih Dr. Aizat. Okey, baiklah hadirin yang dihormati sekalian. Majlis kini diteruskan lagi dengan ucap pertama daripada Penyelaras Program Pertandingan Perancangan Pembangunan Lestari P3L Dr. Muhammad Nazri Borhan. Majlis dengan ini menjemput Dr. Muhammad Nazri Borhan untuk menyampaikan ucapan. Dipersilakan.
Saya ke penyelaras. Oh, Dr. Aizat patutnya penyelaras ni. Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Boleh dengar tak suara saya?
Boleh.
Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera untuk semua. Saya pun tak ambil masa panjang lah sebab saya pun baru diberi notis oleh Dr. Aizat hari ini untuk mewakili Dr. Syarizal sebab Dr. Syarizal tak dapat turut serta dalam program kita ni. Untuk memberi ucapan ringkas lah berkaitan dengan pertandingan perancangan pembangunan lestari P3L yang objektif pertandingan adalah untuk kebolehan pelajar menilai impak lokasi projek dari sudut kesihatan, keselamatan awam, masyarakat dan budaya serta alam sekitar dan kelestarian. Dengan adanya pertandingan ini kita berharap pelajar dapat membangunkanlah konsep mereka bentuk projek integrasi infrastruktur kejuruteraan awam yang kompleks, mapan dan juga termaju. Secara umumnya industri pembinaan ini memang memberi kesanlah kepada alam sekitar dengan berlakunya penerokaan kawasan hutan, pencemaran dan perubahan iklim. Dan sebagai contoh projek yang diberikan kepada awak semua ini adalah satu kawasan hutan yang masih belum diterokai lagi. Jadinya kesedaran terhadap kelestarian tu amat tinggilah untuk kita menjaga kelestarian. Sebagai contohnya sekarang ni kita tengah hot dengan masalah banjir. Jadinya kita dapat lihatlah selepas banjir ni dengan keadaan sampah meratapi dan juga kayu-kayu yang dihanyutkan ni. Kayu-kayu ni mungkinlah dari sebab aktiviti perhutanan yang tidak terkawal menyebabkan larian air hujan tu kita tak dapat nak menampung lagi. So dengan adanya aspek kelestarian ni sebagai contoh mungkin akan datang awak boleh cadangkan dalam projek awak ni kita menggunakan permukaan berturap yang berliang iaitu yang kita panggil sebagai poros asfalt yang mungkin boleh digunakan yang dapat membantu penyerapan air di tapak dan juga mengurangkan hakisan tanah lah. Jadinya dengan kelestarian alam sekitar ni kita perlu ditekankanlah terutamanya dalam proses perancangan sesuatu pembinaan. Jadinya perancangan proses ni adalah satu yang kritikal kerana kita perlu merealisasikan matlamat kelestarian ni. Kita tak nak kita dah bangunkan projek tu baru kita nak masukkan elemen kelestarian dalam projek kita. Jadinya itu dah terlewat. Jadinya dengan adanya pertandingan seperti ini kita dapat membangunkan pembangunan yang lestari dan juga dapat membuka minda kepada para pelajar apa yang perlu dilakukan dalam perancangan pembangunan projek tu. Jadinya sampai di sini dululah ucapan saya dan saya serahkan kembali kepada pengurusi majlis lah. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Dr. Nazri Borhan atas ucapan tadi. Baiklah, kita teruskan dengan sesi seterusnya iaitu ulasan daripada penilai-penilai pertandingan perancangan pembangunan lestari P3L. Dengan ini, majlis menjemput Prof. Madya Dr. Nur Izzi Mat Yusof untuk memberikan ulasan beliau.
Okey, Puan Pengerusi, Saudari Pengerusi, Dr. Izzi tak dapat join kita pada petang ini. Dan saya, so kita ada Dr. Ain yang akan beri ulasannya. Dan minta maaf bos, Dr. Nazri, bukan course coordinator, program coordinator. Sasul tadi. Sana, saya tengok Dr. Ain dah ada. Sekejap ya. Letak Ain tengah cuba masuk. Dah ada dah. Letak Ain. Letak Ain. Sekejap ya.
I tak berapa nak dengar suara. You boleh dengar suara I?
Boleh.
Okay. Thank you. Alright. So macam mana ni? Is it my turn? Sorry. I tertinggal.
Ya, betul. Letak Ain.
Oh, okay. So, a feedback daripada presentation IDP yang lepas kan? Betul?
Betul.
Alright. Okay. Sorry, I kat dalam kereta. Okay, Assalamualaikum dan selamat petang. Thank you for the invitation. So, okay, serba sedikit lah untuk saya daripada track 2. Untuk memberi sedikit ulasan lah daripada presentation yang telah kita access daripada pelajar-pelajar kita yang lepas. Antara a few points yang I nak sharekan kat sini ialah pertama dari segi presentation. So far dari segi presentation skill kita boleh katakan kesemua pelajar okey, memang bagus. Dari segi cara penyampaian jelas, and then susunan slide, pemilihan warna apa dan segala-gala lah dari segi persediaan dia punya slide semua adalah tersusun dan okey, sesuai dengan apa yang you persembahkan. Kedua adalah teknik menjawab lah. Yang ini saya rasa ada sedikit ruang lagi yang boleh diperbaiki. Okey, maksudnya dari segi kaedah menjawab tu kurang data-data konkret yang dipersembahkan. Okay, bila kita menjawab, bila kita mempersembahkan lain because you dah ready dengan you punya slide. So all the numbers, figures, statistical and everything semua you dah masuk dekat dalam tu, you just read it. So dia ada guide for you untuk you baca information ataupun maklumat tu berdasarkan dengan you punya numbers dan data. Tapi bila you menjawab soalan, mungkin you tak ready apa soalan yang ditanya. Okay, so bila macam tu, so bila you jawab very longgar, tak ada supporting data. Contohnya you tak ada masukkan you punya berapa meters jarak daripada mana ke mana, all the numbers tu hilang. So adalah lebih baiklah sekiranya kita sediakan a few slide untuk kita punya panduan next time bila you buat presentation ataupun bila you buat apa-apa pembentangan lah atau di mana-mana. You cuba brainstorm sedikit. Apakah contoh-contoh mungkin soalan yang akan ditanya, okay, oleh para panel ataupun bila you buat presentation oleh your client ke, your guest ke, tak kisahlah sesiapa kan, your boss ke. So you kena expectkan, okay, apa mungkin yang dia akan tanya. So prepare at least 1 or 2 slides yang cukup dengan all the data, yang kalau kena tanya, okay, you just tinggal tunjuk je. Okay, this is the slide yang you hidekan dulu terlebih dahulu. So whenever the panel ataupun your boss tanya, okay, I have the slide, then you just simply show the slide with the numbers and everything. So benda tu lebih tepat lah, because I believe that engineers ni kita kena cakap berdasarkan data lah. You cannot like simply, okay, jarak dekat, jarak jauh, lebih tinggi, lebih rendah, okay, lebih ramai, lebih sedikit, without the numbers. So we need to nampak lebih banyak means berapa banyak, berapa signifikan besar banyaknya benda tu. Okay, itu yang I think most of the student perlu perbaiki. Maksudnya whenever you make a statement, you must have a supporting data dekat situ. You must have the numbers accurate dekat situ. Kalau tak ada accurate angka-angka pun at least ada some idea berapa nombor, berapa meter. You nak round up pun boleh lah 200 meter, 300 meter, but at least you have the number kat situ. Okay, that is one thing. Yang teknik menjawab yang perlu you improvekan. Okay. Lepas tu dari segi report writing so far saya dapati tak ada masalah. Semua kumpulan boleh menulis report dengan baik. Cuma dari segi penyampaian perincian tu lah maksud saya. Mungkin dari segi mapping, okay, lack of map ataupun indikator-indikator yang mudah untuk reader tengok dan terus faham. The report most of it like reader kena baca, and dia lebih kepada berbentuk macam textbooks. Okay, the report is not really report technical, tapi lebih kepada macam your observation tentang macam you pergi lah kan. So lebih kepada macam information, compilation of information instead of technical reports. Bila dah ke bawah-bawah, belakang-belakang dah start masuk SWOT tu, baru kita nampak sedikit technical reportsnya di situ. Tapi yang bahagian atas-atas tu most of it memang macam kita baca textbook sajalah. Okay, yang itu pun mungkin boleh improvekan sedikit lah. Maksudnya bila reader nampak, maybe you boleh wrap upkan, conclusionkan dalam setiap bahagian, okay, in one graphic form ke kan, atau dari segi macam you nak buat yang application of the sustainability elements, you boleh letak dekat layout itu, okay, mana you nak apply you punya sustainability element kat sini. Okay, you just pinpoint macam tu. So bila reader nampak map tu, dia nampak, dia boleh terus gambarkan, okay, oh budak ni belajar benda ni di sini dan nak apply di sini, macam tu. Okay, so itu dari segi technical report dia lah. The technicality you kena perincikan sedikit. Okay, next dari segi content and observation during the presentation. Okay, yang ini I bagi credit dari segi observation. I can see that kita faham pelajar dah dibawa lawatan ke loop 1, loop 2 and everything. So dari segi observation, pemerhatian dan cerapan data daripada lawatan sangat bagus. You can see that in the report. Okay, you have a very complete report regarding those observation. It's just that dari segi application yang agak kekurangan dekat situ. Means kekurangan sebab saya difahamkan yang pelajar telah dimaklumkan that you need to apply whatever suggest di mana you nak apply whatever that you have observed during the visits. Okay, so kita expectkan that pelajar dah baca the rubric, dah baca all the indicators, macam mana kita akan bagi assessment dekat you. So kita expect that you dah tahulah apa our expectation. Okay, so maksudnya our expectation is not only menuliskan you punya observation dan juga you punya pemerhatian daripada lawatan, tetapi juga application towards the sustainability part dekat dalam you punya design konsep yang you nak cadangkan. Okay, so kalau macam tu yang itu saya nampak ada sedikit kekurangan. So kita harapkan pelajar dapat menambah baik. Maksudnya bila you buat presentation, you kena tahu apa yang kita nak assess. So daripada situ you tahu apa yang you nak letak dalam you punya slide dan up to what extent panel akan bagi you markah. Okay, so bila you I tak tahu you baca ke tidak, but I believe that we have shared the rubric. So sepatutnya pelajar lihat each of the point apa yang kita assess to you, and biasanya kita akan tengok dekat paling bawah sekali apa kedalaman assessment yang kita berikan. Kita nak use sampai level mana? Adakah level observation and reporting sahaja, ataupun level assess and applied, ataupun level untuk understanding. Okay, so kalau kita kata applied means kita nak expect kita nak lihat application daripada your observation kepada you punya konsep design yang ada. Tetapi yang itu most of the group kita dapati lack, tak ada. Kalau ada pun mungkin agak sangat sedikit, very minimum. Okay, tanpa justification dan huraian lanjut. Ataupun during presentation bila kita tanya baru dia cakap. So kita tak tahulah adakah benda tu on the spot. So bila kena tanya dia baru okay tembak je lah. Yang ni nak pakai kat sini, yang ni nak pakai kat sini. Okay, tanpa any planning at the beginning. So I think daripada bahagian saya, track saya itu je yang saya dapat wrap upkan. Maksudnya daripada segi persembahan oral, okay. Persembahan written, okay. Cuma dua-dua tu perincian dari segi detailing agak kurang dan number dan juga supporting data you agak kurang. So, you tak cakap based on facts. So, bila kita bercakap, I believe that kita kena bercakap based on facts. Okay? Because, as I said, engineers, you kena cakap based on facts. You kena cakap suka-suka. Oh, lebih dulu, lebih cepat, lebih besar, lebih kecil, lebih dekat, jarak jauh, jauh sedikit. Okay? Kita tak boleh cakap macam tu. So when you say jauh sedikit, how jauh sedikit yang you maksudkan? Alright. So next semester, we hope that semua statement yang you bagi, jauh, dekat, besar, tinggi, whatever lah parameters yang you nak buat,
ada numbers kat situ. Ada detail dia dekat situ. Dalam drawing ke, dalam words ke, dalam penulisan ke, but there's the numbers that we can read there. Okay? And then dari segi drawing, this semester kita tahulah it's a conceptual design, so mungkin tak ada detail drawing, but we expect that next semester kita akan dapat drawing yang lebih lengkap. Okay, so hopefully you boleh prepare that. And dari segi content lah, itu saja. Content memang applied lah. So observation tak ada masalah untuk semua pelajar. Very good observation skills. Laporan penulisan yang bagus, cuma technicality aja yang kurang. Okay, dan juga you punya itulah application kurang. So I hope benda-benda tu you dapat improve dalam you punya presentation yang akan datang. Okay, itu saja kot daripada saya. Thank you so much. And tahniah lah to everybody. Dan tahniah kepada pemenang, katanya ada pemenang ya dalam IDP ni. So okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Okay, terima kasih Dr. Nohani atas ulasan yang diberikan. Dan sekali majlis sekali lagi menjemput Dr. Muhammad Nazri Borhan untuk memberikan sedikit ulasan.
Okey, saya rasa Dr. Noraini dah. Okey, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya rasa Dr. Noraini dah simpulkan semuanya tadi. Cuma saya nak tambah sikit lah. Sebagai contoh apa yang saya perhatikan sepanjang sesi pembentangan tu, sebagai contoh pelajar kena rasional lah. Sebagai contoh kita tengok paling mudah saya ambil contoh berkaitan dengan dengan kontur permukaan tu. Sebagai contoh pelajar kena ambil kira pada masa yang sama, pelajar kena ambil kira juga keadaan di luar site tu. Walaupun kita hanya consider pada dalam site, tapi di luar site tu pelajar kena ambil juga. Sebagai contoh di mana berlakunya perbezaan ketinggian di antara di luar site sampai hampir melebihi 10 meter ataupun lebih pada 10 meter. Jadinya ini tidak menjadikan suatu pembangunan yang sustainability, di mana mungkin pada bila pembangunan itu telah disiap pada masa akan datang, bila dengan keadaan di luar itu dengan tiada langkah yang diambil untuk mengatasi takutnya, sebagai contoh kita takutnya berlaku hakisan tanah ke apa ke, jadinya pelajar tidak consider benda-benda macam tu. Jadinya pelajar kalau boleh pada masa akan datang kita kena consider semua elemen lah, sama ada di luar kita kena, walaupun itu bukan di kawasan kita, jadi kita kena ambil kira juga. Sebabnya akan memberi kesan kepada pada masa akan datang untuk kita punya kajian tu. Sekian, terima kasih kepada saya.
Okay, terima kasih Dr. Nazri atas ulasan yang diberikan. Semoga ulasan-ulasan yang diberikan ini dapat memberikan semangat kepada para pelajar untuk mencapai lebih banyak kejayaan di masa akan datang. Hadirin sekalian, sekarang tibalah kita ke acara penyampaian anugerah bagi pertandingan perancangan Pembangunan Lestari P3L yang telah pun berlangsung pada tarikh 17 Disember 2021 yang lalu bersempena Minggu Inovasi dan Kreativiti FCAP. Anugerah-anugerah ini diadakan bertujuan untuk menghargai usaha para pelajar yang telah bertungkus lumus bertanding di peringkat jabatan. Semasa sesi penyampaian hadiah ini berlangsung, sukacita diingatkan kepada semua para pemenang untuk bersedia dan membuka kamera video masing-masing bagi sesi bergambar yang akan dibantu oleh urusan teknikal majlis. Baiklah, tanpa melengahkan masa, majlis akan dimulakan dengan penyampaian anugerah yang pertama, iaitu Anugerah Pembangunan Mampan. Pemenang bagi anugerah ini akan menerima sijil penghargaan berserta wang tunai berjumlah RM150 Malaysia. Bagi Anugerah Pembangunan Mampan, dimenangi oleh kumpulan 1 iaitu kumpulan Wan Muhammad Hafiz bin Wan Abdurrahman. Ini diucapkan kepada kumpulan 1. Seterusnya, bagi anugerah teknologi pembinaan termaju, pemenang bagi anugerah ini juga akan menerima sijil penghargaan berserta wang tunai berjumlah RM150 Malaysia. Bagi anugerah teknologi pembinaan termaju, dimenangi oleh kumpulan 24 iaitu kumpulan Lim Yong Len. Tanya diucapkan kepada kumpulan 24. Bagi anugerah yang ketiga, anugerah pembentang terbaik SWOT, pemenang bagi anugerah ini akan menerima sijil penghargaan berserta wang tunai berjumlah RM100 Malaysia. bagi anugerah pembentang terbaik SWOT disandang oleh kumpulan 11 iaitu kumpulan Khairul Farhan bin Muhammad Khairi.
Yang ada pelik-pelik macam
terakhir iaitu anugerah pembentang terbaik bagi konsep desain. Pemenang bagi anugerah ini akan menerima sijil penghargaan berserta wang tunai berjumlah RM100 Malaysia. Bagi anugerah pembentang terbaik konsep desain disandang oleh kumpulan 9, kumpulan Kang Ziyi. Kepada kumpulan 9, setinggi-tinggi tahniah diucapkan kepada semua penerima anugerah sebentar tadi. Semoga anda terus menempa kejayaan demi kejayaan dan kepada yang lain, masa masih ada, perjalanan masih jauh, teruskan lagi dengan pelbagai kejayaan dalam bidang masing-masing. Alhamdulillah, majlis kita sudah sampai ke penghujungnya. Saya mewakili pihak penganjur mengucapkan rasa syukur dan terima kasih kepada semua pihak yang terlibat dalam menjayakan majlis kita pada hari ini. Di kesempatan ini, saya ingin memohon ribuan kemaafan atas salah silap sepanjang mengasyarikan majlis ini. Dengan ini, maka berakhirlah majlis penyampaian hadiah bagi pertandingan Perancangan Pembangunan Lestari P3L. Sebagai tanda kenang-kenangan, saya mempersilakan para hadirin untuk membuka kamera video masing-masing dan kekal selama lebih kurang 1 minit untuk sesi bergambar secara maya yang akan dibantu oleh urusetia teknikal majlis. Dipersilakan para hadirin sekalian.
Okey, jemput semua buka kamera.
Okey, senyum semua. Okey. Bagi pihak majlis, kami mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih atas kehadiran anda semua ke Majlis Penyampaian Anugerah bagi pertandingan Perancangan Pembangunan Lestari P3L pada petang ini. Semoga pertemuan kita ini merupakan pertemuan yang diberkati dan dirahmati Allah. Semoga perpisahan kita juga adalah sebagai perpisahan yang sentiasa dipelihara daripada segala mara bahaya. Akhir kata, kami memohon maaf jika terdapat sebarang kesilapan sepanjang mengendalikan majlis ini. Kami sudahi majlis dengan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan terima kasih.
Terima kasih Civilian, terima kasih Zulaika, terima kasih semua. Okey, kepada pemenang tu, take note ya, nanti kita ada majlis pada 6 bulan hari Khamis. So, wakil diminta untuk hadirlah untuk menghadiri majlis tersebut dan kita ada penyampaian hadiah dalam majlis fakulti. Nanti kami akan bagi makluman seterusnya untuk majlis tersebut. Alright, so terima kasih kepada Civilian, terima kasih kepada pelajar, terima kasih kepada pesyarat yang turut hadir serta RI pun ada juga. Terima kasih Edison. So we'll see you again. Assalamualaikum and take care everyone. Selamat petang.